let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. Conversations that cool. Kitchen talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. Conversations that cool. Let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk. What you wanna talk about?
Hey.
How you guys doing?
Welcome.
It's 9:01.
You know what? Y'all make me nervous, but I'm learning to woosah and be all right. Like, okay, they gonna make it in here at some point.
Oh God, you know what? I got to make it. I had to find my green. Oh, so you know, I like, what's my green? I gotta get some green.
You know what? I have not thought about that all day. It
should have been in our green. Yes.
Yep. I wish I was there. I could have pinched you.
Well, now I thought it was kissing. I didn't think it was a pinch.
I thought it was a pinch. If you don't have your green on, you get pinched.
No, well.
Where you learn that from?
Maybe you want a kiss, Lisa.
Listen,
I'm telling you, it was a kiss. It wasn't a pinch.
Man, all these years I would have not wore green. I would have wore blue or black. Get some black kisses. Goodness. Some brown Hershey kisses. You know.
Okay, Jamal in the background, like, it was a pinch. Thank you, JC. Okay, I don't know where I got that from, but it is also Women's History Month, which we continue to celebrate. There's so much going on, so many great women, so many sheroes. I wore my Black Girls Rock earrings just to represent the women that make it happen, that run the world.
Black girl magic.
Yes, absolutely. So this is Kitchen Talk CTC.
Conversations that cook.
And that they do. And we just celebrated at the top of the year our 100th episode, 100 shows, and counting. Yes.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I want to say a great big shout out to you, Dr. Henderson, because you kicked off our virtual series.
Wow.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And that was a great show.
It was. You kicked off our virtual, because we were like toiling, like, okay, y'all, we in a pandemic. You know, what we gonna do? Are we just shut down for good? Or, and Francis was like, we should go virtual. And I was like, yeah, but are y'all gonna really want to do that? Whatever. Like, okay, does virtual mean once a month? I don't want to talk to y'all just once a month. Because technically that's how often we met, right? We used to meet once a month, do our shows, do 3-4 shows. And put them in the can and they're ready for television. So, yep, you kicked it off. We liked it so much. I was like, y'all, we got to do it. And
wow, and never look back.
Yeah.
Yep, here we are.
I am truly, I love this platform. But I am looking forward to being back together. Yeah. That energy in the room, I miss it.
Yeah.
I miss it. And looks like every time we think we might get close, it's like, Nah, here comes something else.
It'll be that way for a little while longer.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
thinking so too. But we still get to stay connected, which is one of the things that we love about technology, is that we can still, stay connected in this way. The other thing we're doing that's new in 22 is we are book clubbing it this year. We are,
Love.
we are book clubbing it. We are reading Internal Investigation: A Journey into Your Soul with Dr. Marvin Scott. So we are excited about that. That conversation will be on March 31st. Those books are, you can purchase the book on Amazon. And Dr. Scott is a regular. He's vacationing right now, but he's pretty much turned into one of our regular co-hosts for the show. So it's so cool to have him. And so that's what we're doing on the 31st. So grab those books, join the conversation. It's going to be very interesting. I have no doubts.
Oh yeah.
No doubt.
Awesome.
No
I'm
doubt.
already into the book already. So it's gonna be a good conversation.
It's gonna be a good conversation. I cannot wait. And we've been like trying not to talk to him about it beforehand. So Dr. Henderson, when we talked about doing something and I gave France and JT the book over Christmas, we sitting at dinner, supposed to be celebrating. They in the book like this. I'm like, hello.
That tells me it's a good book.
It's
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And I was like, y'all can't talk about it now. So yeah, it's gonna be, I think that's definitely gonna be a good, lively conversation. Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Angela Henderson. She is a licensed clinical psychologist that helped us through COVID. gave us our little things we could do, especially for the social people that don't like. Yeah, like I gotta sit here in this room and not be with nobody.
Yes.
And she is back. The name of her practice is North Florida Cares, and her telephone number is. Thank you, JC.
On it.
I love it. I love it. So, what we wanted to talk about today is suicide. I know one thing about this show that I love, no subject is off limits. And we do like to have a lot of fun and we do like to laugh and we do like to talk. But there are some subjects that we just have to hit. Like we have to hit on voting, we have to hit on communication, we have to hit on all of these different things, social justice, social injustice. And one of the things that sparked me for this one was the last two things I had read either in social media or in the news. One was Regina King's son committed suicide, and another one was Miss US. Is it Miss USA?
Yes.
USA?
Mm-hmm.
Committing suicide, and I was like, you know what? We need to talk about this. We need to talk about this. I think too, and I began to kind of search my mind for when I was younger. Did I hear about suicide like this as much as we're hearing about it now? And then is that because we just didn't have a lot of news or a lot of media or much social media as we have now? Definitely. Or are the numbers for it rising? And then the other thing that I wondered about was we didn't hear about it a lot in the Black community. And I didn't know whether that was because people just didn't talk about it and it wasn't really happening, or it wasn't really happening and now it is.
Right.
Like what happened to kind of, and not saying that one race or another should, we shouldn't be worried about it. I'm just thinking, what it's so hard to like begin where the conversation should begin. It's like,
Yes.
what you want to know, what's the signs? You want to know, how come we didn't see it? How come the people that were around these people didn't see it? How could it be prevented? I mean, it's just so much digging into. So, Dr. Anderson, just start, Henderson, just start wherever you think we need to jump in.
First of all, Lisa, you're right. This topic is so like nuanced and complex that we could start in a lot of different directions. So I'll keep it open and try to answer whatever questions you all have. But I'll start out by giving off some statistics, and that kind of can let us know where we are. The first one, suicide is the 10th, and in some research, the 9th leading cause of death in the US.
Wow.
Last year alone, 47,000 plus people died by suicide. And these come from the CDC that I took off today, that 12.2 million people thought about suicide last year. Just thought about it. 3.2 million actually had a plan for suicide. And then 1.2 million of those actually attempted suicide. So a lot of the data that they're collecting are thankfully from people that actually attempted suicide and thought about it. And they're able to give us information on what led up to it, what were some of the issues and stressors they were dealing with that led to them thinking about taking their lives and ultimately attempting. Now, those are the statistics now. If we go into statistics by race, that's where it gets interesting. Because years ago, like you were saying earlier, Lisa, in our community, especially in the Black community, we didn't talk about it as much because we didn't see it as much. If it did happen, it was kept quiet. It was thought of as sort of like a male type of issue, most likely Caucasian, usually due to responding to some type of stressors in their life. But over the last decade or two, those numbers have changed dramatically. So they've seen increases in each racial group, and especially in the African-American population as well. And another group that is growing alarmingly are our children. So we have, let's see if I can share alarming statistics that I saw today. The age of children between 10 and 14 years old, that is the second leading cause of death within that age group.
Oh my God.
10 to 14. And then also a second leading cause of death are between adults ages between 25 and 34. So between 10 and 14 and 25 and 34, they've seen a dramatic uptick, particularly after COVID.
Wow.
So those are what we're looking at. Is no longer isolated to just pockets of society. This thing is touching every part of society, every racial group, every age group, even if you just dissect the pie different ways, you will see suicide touching it. So it's become now, it's reaching alarming levels. And I think because of the deaths of a couple of people that are out in the news and that are prominent, it's getting the attention that it deserves. But it's really been a problem really for the last decade. That's when the numbers started turning. They were seeing an uptick.
Wow. That is amazing numbers, especially for the children.
Yes.
That is alarming.
And
alarming.
It is, and I think that's what needs to happen. As you say, alarming, I'm thinking that's when alarm happens, action takes place, right? So now that we know, okay, what do we need to do? So I was looking at trying to find some of the statistics as well. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. Just looking at how many people, and I know you were focused on the United States, but I was looking at the world. 1.2 billion, people attempted. I was like, that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
So, there's a lot of stressors that we have to really look at to see, what's the reason why? And then how can we change our what can we do so that it's not an issue, right? The crazy part is the younger folks are getting it more.
Yes.
And what is that stressor that's causing that factor to be a factor? What's happening? I think the alarm is set. What are we going to do? What can be done to address the issue?
Yeah, that's my question. It's like, I know for me growing up, I don't even remember suicide being like an option. Like, you just didn't really hear about it as a thing that you could do really kind of at all for any type of relief or solve to your problem or anything like that. And again, I think we've all experienced, hurts that we wanted to go away.
Right.
My heart has been broken, of course. But for me, I didn't necessarily have the thought of, I just want to end it all. I will say this. I did pray that if God wanted to go ahead and take me, I was fine, in that hurt. But I didn't necessarily feel like I wanted to do it myself.
Right.
Right. And so, but is that a type of suicidal thought? That if gone unchecked, maybe
Correct.
it would have, escalated or turned into me causing or wanting to cause harm to myself. But who could I have told that?
I think that's the other piece. You
it's
said
like
that.
finding somebody that you could talk to. What is mental health? We didn't talk about mental health. These sort of things. You just prayed. And so my prayer was, Lord, I don't want to feel this way. So if you're ready for me to come to heaven, I'm fine. I'm fine with that. And this is how I first learned that God says no. That sort of thing. But I'm just that one person with my thought processes. Everybody doesn't think the same way.
Correct. When it comes to suicide, you brought up so many good issues right there, Lisa. There are certain buffers that tend to buffer a person from going further in the direction of suicidal ideation. For people to think about what it would feel like to not be here, we differentiate that from suicidal ideation to morbid thinking. So you will, during periods of times, if you're sad or going through things, you may have negative thoughts. You may feel down or sad, but the difference is with suicidal ideation, those thoughts don't leave. They are recurrent. You then begin to think about ways to end your life. You then begin to move in the direction of, I don't want to be here, and this is what I'm going to do to no longer be here. Some of the buffers that through clinical research and other type of information have led that things like having a religious belief or having a cultural belief buffers you. So when you were thinking about, well, God, if you don't want me to be here, then it's fine. You had a limit. You had a block that or a boundary that you would not cross. God had to do that for you. So that's one of the ways, or one of the things that are considered as a buffer. If you have some type of higher power that you subscribe to, or cultural or religious belief. Another thing too, which I think has played into with our kids and just with individuals overall, is just this thing we call connection. Feeling connected to people that are around you in your inner circle, the people that are out a little bit outside of that circle, to people in your groups like your church or school or whatever in your community. There's been a disconnect. Usually when you talk to people that are suicidal, they tend to feel isolated. Even if outside looking in, you see that person, well, wait a minute, you have a big family, or you have a wonderful job, things are going well for you, but inside, internally, that person is thinking, I'm alone. No one understands me. I'm bad at this, or I'm not good enough. So those negative cognitions are constantly just going down a negative spiral. So those are the things that we tend to look for. We tend to look at the buffers a person has in place, and then some of those warning signs that you tend to see.
I agree with that. So, I mean, wholeheartedly. I think, and as we were talking about, it's like, you know, missing that family unit and that social unit is so big, right? So
Yes.
not just we talk about this all the time, the village.
Yes.
So it's not just the mom and the dad and the uncles and the aunties and the cousins, it's the close friends, the church members, the schoolmates. You know, all of that plays a big role in how, you know, we interact.
Yes.
I saw something recently. I said, man, that's so true within the African American community, right? So going back for years, going back to our ancestry, they were always in groups.
Yes.
They always were. I'm like, that makes so much sense. Like why we kind of tend to want to be in some type of organization, in some type of group, because it's in our DNA.
Yes.
So when we lose that, you know, I think that's where you start getting those triggers.
You got it. And if you go along that line, when you think about the intervention or the solution to that, it would be, how do you reconnect that individual to those supports or those resources? So it puts a little responsibility too on the village. Like, for example, if you have a friend that you hadn't heard from in a long time, or a family member that's no longer coming to the family gatherings, or if you just see, if you're talking to somebody and you're like, well, how are you doing today? And they're like, oh, okay. Like, you're responsible to ask more, to be more present, to make sure that each member in the group, in the society, is doing okay. You know, one person at a time. So that's usually one of the interventions. You'll start out with the family unit. And if the person doesn't have a strong family unit, then you'll reach out, connect them to community resources. But the goal is to get that person connected where they're connected to their present, because suicidal ideations remove them outside of their present. So they're already thinking about, you know, if things will be better if I'm not here. But just if you're talking to someone or run into somebody that you feel is heading in that direction, just you checking in with them has a huge impact. Huge.
So what about, and I can only use myself as an example, what about that person, and I'm really good at this, I'm putting my best foot forward. When I'm out, when you see me, you know, how are you? Oh, girl, I'm great, you know, and I may not be. So how would you recognize it in folks like that? Or do you have to really be close to that person to kind of know, like, when they're not, like, even if it's fake? Because I have faked it many times, you know. No, I'm not okay. I don't like this. I'm not happy with that. But I'm the type of person that, two things for me. I don't want to bring anybody down. So I'm not going to tell you when I'm down, because I don't want to bring the energy of the room down. I don't want to put my stuff on somebody else. And two, I'm a little defiant. So sometimes I'm not going to let you know when you hurt me, because I don't want you to have that kind of satisfaction or that kind of power over me. But technically you do, because here I am, you know, not letting you know, you know, or whatever. So how do you reckon? And I think about this, especially with when the reports were saying that Miss USA had just did an interview with somebody, and you know, it was like shocking. Like, most of the time when you hear about it, people are like, they're so shocked that this happened. You know, they're so shocked that this person, you know, took their own life. When we think about, even with some years ago with Robin Williams, this is a comedian.
Correct.
This is, you know,
not just a comedian,
you know, right? Like, you know, how did this happen? So so is it that you really need to get to know these people and know them in a way that you could tell when something ain't quite right?
Great question too. As you know, there will be a percentage of people that you won't get. If they have made the decision and they will not tell you, and you won't know till after the fact. So we recognize that there will be a percentage of individuals that we won't be able to reach. But from what you were saying, though, people that know you right now, Lisa, heard what you said. So their responsibility moving forward would be to check in with you often.
Right.
So even if you're not ready to say, I don't want to let anybody in my business, I don't want to be a burden, which is a key sign for suicide ideation for general, because they don't want to be a burden. They don't want to unburden themselves on other people. So the ones that are close to you, if you're taught to look for these signs early on, you'll see them, because most individuals that are contemplating suicide, they have contemplated it for a while. Not something, for most cases, I'm not saying all, but for the majority of cases, they've thought about it before they actually take their lives. So you'll hear things like, I was sad or depressed, or you'll see changes in their mood. You'll see changes in their behavior. They might miss some work. They may not come out to gatherings that you have. You'll see some changes. And if you notice a change in someone that you're close to, don't feel awkward or afraid to talk to them about it. And just letting them know that you notice a change in their behavior, and just, you just want to know if they're okay, and that you are there for them when they're ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
I think with this
I'm sorry, friends. We just had a question that came up. Yep, Marvin.
On vacation.
He said, do you think that social media is a major problem?
I was just going there. And it's not just social media, it's just media, period, right? So TV, radio, whatever you could think of. You even think of like people like Kanye West. I know he's having a beef right now with D.L. Hughley, and that's becoming a bigger thing than it need to be. But this is what our young people are watching.
Yes.
And hearing and internalizing, right?
Yes.
So whichever side they feel a certain way about it, and they take it in, and there's not that support system as much as they used to be. And that's sad to say. Now, that's not all, but I think there is a lack of support. So when that thing happens, I remember something happening when I was younger in our church community. Very, very traumatizing, a family that we've known, a young family just getting started, mother was killed, all the kids were killed. So as a young child, you're watching this and it's like, I just saw them in church and here's this happen. But we had the church community, counselors, people there to help us through that process. I don't know if our generation, this newer generation, have that, dealing with not only their issues, but I think they also take on issues from people they don't even know, really. Because of social media, you feel like, oh, that's my best friend, or they know me, we talk. But that person don't know you.
Yes, friends of you. And thank you, Marvin, too, for bringing that up. Social media with the kids. Remember when COVID happened, they were separated from their peers and their lives became kind of isolated at home, and their only connection was through that phone. So a lot of kids were judging themselves, comparing themselves off of what they saw through social media lens. And it caused a lot of them to feel inadequate, depressed, and those type of things. So it does play a huge role.
And it's just the exposure to so much. And I think too, not only are they exposed, but they're getting desensitized.
Correct.
It's like, it's so much, but at the same time, there's no counter of counseling. There's no counter of, emotional coaching. There's no counseling, no counter of, yes, this is social media, but there's nobody saying, this stuff really ain't all that real, y'all. Whatever. It's just like, this how I live my life. I remember when they first talked about, social distancing and stuff like that. Well, for the older generation, for my generation, social media is social distancing. We were used to getting together, throwing card parties and stuff
Yep.
like that. Now y'all just want to be on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever else, TikTok or whatever. To us, that is social distancing.
I would, you know what, and it's not even just the social outlets, even video games,
Yes.
right? Because this is the chance for. So when I was playing video games when I was younger, I went to my cousin's house. We sat around together and we listened to play the games, listened to music, talked about what was going on in our lives. It was a time for us to bond together.
It is so different now.
They're on their, they're on their earphones, so you're not really touching anybody. It's rare that the other person's even in the room.
Yeah.
But there's a whole community of other people that's, on their earbuds or talking to them, but it's not the same. You're not really building that sense of, again, community.
Yeah.
Through the internet, through the video games. I've been using this word since they pulled this up in the other reality. I call it a false reality. All of this, hey, you could be in this other world and do this and do that, but it really takes away what makes us human and brings us whole and help us to get through challenging times when they come, and they do come.
And that's huge, because you brought up a great point. Not being able to handle life, like the coping skills,
right?
That's a part of the intervention as well, like from children and even adults as well. Learning that when life challenges hit, you have tools to deal with that.
Right.
So, and I think that's missing some nowadays. We have kids that are not able to handle life's challenges, so they will respond with the extreme. And same thing with some adults.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the hardest part right there, was with the adults, because I think there are times, and we've seen this already, I'm hoping we don't see it too much more, but when the adults have issues and they push it onto the kids.
Right.
So then the kids go out and do things that are uncommon, so to speak. Either suicide is just one. We've seen it going into other schools, killing other kids. I mean, something happened.
Well, they imitate what they see.
Yeah.
So if this is how I see problems being solved, then this is kind of what I'm gonna do. Whether that is in their household, whether that is on television. I think it's so crazy what just flashed in my mind. I think about the Roadrunner and the Coyote. The coyote was constantly being blown up, or whatever trap he set for the Roadrunner end up getting him, but he would come back. And I think sometimes do we think, is that our process? Well, I can, I'll come back from it.
Right.
I'll come back from it, whatever. And some consequences you don't come back from. Some things you don't come back from. And I think that might be, one of the things that really needs to be looked at, as far as what you were saying about programming, television and video games and all of this stuff. It's so much for an adult mind to make sure, because sometimes adults get caught up in these reality TVs and this and that, and they think that it's so real, and social media and all these perfect lives that they see, and my life ain't that, whatever. And you just, forget that, no, this is your reality, is your reality. You can't judge it by what you see in social media, what you see on television. It is what you are living.
And what you could create.
Right. So that leads me to my other question. Is the thought or the act of suicide a symptom of just you've lost your hope?
Hopelessness is one of the signs. of suicidal ideation, but it's only one. But it is definitely one of the signs that we look for, where you feel like you have no other option but this act.
So what are some of the others, Dr. Henderson?
Sure. Social withdrawal. You kind of keep to yourself. Dramatic change in your work performance, or if you're in school, your grades. Giving away your belongings. So if you go and start giving away your prized possessions, that's a huge one. Let's see, having chronic stress in your life, like financial problems, relationship problems, just anything that is stressful and does not leave. So intense stress that's sustained. Others would include serious illnesses, people who have terminal illness, people who have a history of mental illness are at higher risk. People who have witnessed another person commit suicide, particularly a family member, they are at higher risk. Substance abuse issues is associated with it. And then trauma. If you've witnessed, been a victim of all forms of trauma, you're at increased risk. So those are some of the major ones that we look at.
Wow.
Yes, and then of course prior attempts. So if you have a history of committing suicidal attempts, then of course you have a higher risk of doing it again.
And then, as you're saying, one of each of them one at a time. I'm like, what about when it's compound?
Yes,
Right?
yes, and oftentimes it is, Francois. It is on compound. We will see them with multiple ones.
Right.
So when we get into the attempts, so are we talking you really thought this was gonna work, or did you attempt it so that somebody would see it? Like,
I want to cry for help, maybe.
Yeah. Like, what would, and I don't want to downplay anybody's, trauma and thought process and their attempt to commit suicide, because it's a very serious thing. But is it that they couldn't get something that would absolutely take them out? You know what I mean? Or I guess that's my thing. And then two, being a believer in God, I know you could probably do just about anything. If he say you ain't finna go, you ain't finna go. Yeah. That's what, to me, in some ways. And then I guess in some ways he allows it. I don't know, what that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother.
That's a whole right there.
That's a whole nother.
That's a whole right there.
Yeah. But when we talk about the attempts, how serious is that? Because is this just what that will take you out, or do you not know and you just gonna try this to see if it does?
Yes, and I definitely get what you're saying. So I have to speak as a mental health professional.
Okay.
There are a lot of reasons leading up to that act. But if you commit that act, it's the same outcome, meaning you chose a lethal form to cope with something that's irreversible. So each instance is considered a serious thing. So we take it serious no matter what, even though there are multiple reasons that could lead to that.
Wow. This thing is just not thing, but suicide it's such a weighty kind of issue. And it's like, where do you move to the help process? Like, okay, so with your body, we go to the doctor at least once a year, and do the well check or whatever, or you go to the dentist and get your teeth cleaned, hopefully every 6 months, 3 to 6 months, depending on what you got going on. So how is there not a process for checking on your mental stability in that same way?
That's what we are hoping. I am so happy because we're hearing so much about mental health over the last few years. So the awareness of it and the importance that's being placed on your mental health has grown so much. The stigma, I'm not going to say that the stigma is completely gone, but we definitely see some holes in that. Mental health is just as important as any other function of the body. In fact, your brain controls pretty much everything. So if your brain is not working right, then we're going to have some issues. So yeah, right now when it comes to suicide ideation and all of that, one of the big things, once you're able to get the person into services, let's say after the crisis is over and now they're connecting with a therapist, then the goal would be to help this person develop a safety plan where they can begin to just focus on their own self-care, their own coping skills, and then they're monitored over time and provided the supports they need. So yeah, mental health and putting that as one of the main things that you want to check in, if not annually, just do a mental checkup every now and then just to see if you're okay.
Yeah.
It's the thing that I talk about with my classes, with my college classes in particular, is mindset. Where's your mindset? Growth mindset, fixed mindset, positive mindset, negative mindset. Where are you mentally in your current space? And having people to identify that, right? Because if you don't know where you are, you won't know where you're going. Right. So it's something that we talk about at the beginning of the semester and throughout the semester. I had to kind of start doing that to ensure that we're doing a mental check, right? This process is already difficult and it's a challenge. Nobody's saying it's going to be easy, but you need to know, okay, let me take a little moment to see where I am. Okay. Let me make some adjustments. I think that's kind of the difference, when you look at generations. There was no, oh, you just got to get it done. You know what I mean? So I think it's crazy, the further we go, the more we need the community and the village.
Yes.
But the less we have of it. And unless you have certain individuals who are going to go a little bit above and beyond.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know, what else can we do? How can we continue to push that? Not just with our kids, but even our adults who are slowly too, as my good brother Dr. Akbar would say, we're getting programmed. You don't even know it. You don't even know it. How can we set the program to say, okay, family is important, friends are important, connecting with new people, that's important, right? Sharing how you feel, because not everybody's going to get that opportunity to sit down with a licensed clinician on a monthly or yearly basis, right? Specifically because of the finance.
Right.
But we do have things within our community that has been here for, eons to help us through that process that we kind of downgrade now. How do we upgrade that so that we take full advantage of it?
Yeah, that it becomes a part of, what your healthcare pays for, what your health insurance pays for.
Yes.
And then we don't ever really seek out any type of counseling until a trauma has happened. Like, what would happen if we were in counseling and given tools to pull out that when the trauma happens, or when disappointment comes, that, oh, okay, I remember this from, I can meditate, I can do this, I can do the other to kind of help me, not saying that I won't feel the hurt, but my reaction to the trauma. my reaction and how long I stay in the trauma. I always say, I used to tell the youth kids this: you're when you stay mad, you made that decision to stay
Yeah.
mad.
Yeah.
Yes, something may hurt you, and I'm not downplaying that. Yes, something may upset you, but after that moment, how you continue with it, that's your choice.
Yeah, that's
So
on you.
how can I have those tools
Mm-hmm.
that ahead of time, so
Mm-hmm.
that when this thing happens or when something happens, then I have something that I can pull out to help me cope with it, and not just I'm just gonna stay mad, I'm just gonna stay hurt, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
stay disappointed. Because sometimes there are things, and this is what I learned too with the death of my mom. I had never really dealt with sadness.
Mm.
And sadness is so, excuse my language, freaking heavy.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And I did not, and still kind of do not have an idea, especially did not have an idea how to manage that.
Mm.
So the
Yes.
things that I used to do to help me with my disappointments, the things that I used to do to help me with my hurts, they ain't did nothing
Correct.
Right.
for
Correct.
sadness,
Yes.
So when do we get to talk about, I think ahead of time, saying, let's try this when this happens, or if this happens to you, let's try this. When can we get there, or will
Oh,
we get there?
wonderful,
To help
wonderful question.
people feel, because we don't see the counselor until the trauma happened.
Yes. Wonderful question. A couple of things both of you all said, what Fransley said and you. So hopefully I could touch on them, remember them. Fransley, first of all, what you're doing with your class, really?
Yeah.
That is so impressive.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping
I've even been taking the data down, which is important.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope that spreads to like other instructors and that they check in with their students like that. That's awesome. Lisa, what you were stating of about after your mom passed and you were like sadness and that the techniques that you were using before no longer work is because it wasn't just sadness, it was grief. So you were dealing with grief, which is a totally different type of sadness or a totally different type of depression. And that one you just have to work through. And there are certain counseling techniques that we use for grief. So I want to let you know that that's why you were feeling it at a different level. But they have apps in this new techno world. We have so many mental health apps. All you have to do is just Google what it is that you're dealing with. So let's say you're going through a tough time and you're having problems with depression, or you're having some problems with anxiety, problems with stress. You can literally Google an app, a mental health app, and they have, I wish I would have brought the list with me, but they have wonderful ones that will walk you through each step, give you various like real world, real time coping strategies to use in the moment.
Wow.
So, and it's teachable, and they're now developing ones for children too to implement within school settings.
Oh,
So I
that's
would
great.
say, yes, we have the mental health. Let's see if I wrote that down, but we have several websites dedicated just to mental health. And if you go to that website, you'll see resources. And there's resources for apps that you can utilize if you want information on a certain clinical condition and you want to know, okay, what are the symptoms? How does it impact a person's normal functioning? You can look at that. So there are a lot of ways that you can kind of go into prevention if you're not able to actually sit down with a therapist. But right now, I have to say, they're trying to make it affordable for everyone. So now most health insurances have the option of telehealth. They have companies that do chats and texts. So if you're not comfortable doing telehealth or in person, you can literally just text with a counselor or therapist.
Wow.
And those are usually 24 hours. So they're making it more accessible, where you can get it at any time of the day. And so that is a good sign moving forward, making it mental health more a part of our world versus a stigma.
Yeah, I think through the pandemic, that has actually helped, because you would have to go to the office to see somebody. Now, when you have an issue, you're a phone call, a video chat, a text away from getting the help that you need.
Yes.
But I think one of the things is, you said it earlier, we got to watch for the signs, right? Not just individually, but also collectively. If I see the sign, as I think it's crime watchers, when you see something, you got to
say
do
something.
Exactly. And that's too, Friendly, how you can start. I think one of you said, well, how can we begin to get this going in terms of, you start first with yourself. So you start checking in, making sure you're good, making sure you got oxygen when you pull the mask on. And then once you're good, then you say, okay, how is my spouse doing? Or how's my mom, my brother, my sister, my cousins? How are they all doing? And you model that for your family. You model that for your kids. Guess what your kids gonna do? They're gonna do that with their friends. They're gonna model it. Your family members will model it with other folks. So you start with your own unit, then you branch out, find people like-minded, and then you develop a community where everyone is checking on each other and monitoring, and then it spreads out. So it just start one person at a time, building out.
So let me ask you this question too. And I don't want to sound mean or funny, but are there people that are more prone to suicidal thought than others? And I'm not talking about necessarily, I think I'm thinking more of personality traits, maybe.
That's where you're getting into mental illness. And yes, having a mental illness does place you at a higher risk for suicide ideations, and for some disorders in particular.
And so when we talk about a mental illness, are we saying something that is biological?
Oh, you're getting into some complex things, because there are camps that believe it is definitely biological. There are some hereditary factors there, and then there's a camp that feel like it's very much environmental. And then you got some that believe it's just a combination of both. So it's a complexity to that. Each has their own merit. When you really look at the research, each of them have a good argument.
And so it's good to know what's in your family history as well.
That's why we thoroughly
so that you can know what you may or may not be prone to.
Yes. There is a lot of clinical research that shows children of parents, particularly maternal, that has things like major depression or anxiety disorders. Their children typically have a higher risk of also having those disorders. So there's been a lot of research literature that have looked at that association.
Wow.
And I'm very much an optimist. If you have not figured that out,
he absolutely is.
I do think that can be an issue, right? Especially from a mother who may not be ready to bring this child into the world. So already from the inception, there is a sense of separation, so to speak. Then that child comes in, and it just, gets bigger and bigger over time, because that mother may have had issues. But I do think that there can be change, right? Because we have the ability to make that change happen.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So as we were talking, I actually just text my family group chat just to check in. Hey, are y'all good? Is it a positive? No, are you in the middle? I say, you know what? I'm not gonna wait for that perfect moment.
Yeah.
Right now should be the time for me to check in and say, okay, even if 2 people answer, right?
Yeah.
They answer later down the line. At least I have some knowledge of what's going on and how they're feeling. So I think that's the piece. We could change it within that moment, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't take that much. the more I'm like
here.
processing it, I'm like,
oh my gosh, I'm thinking about just over the years of practicing and hearing some of the stories, like Lisa, what you were saying about just believing in the higher power and God. I can't tell you how many times I heard people say, Dr. Henderson, I was thinking about doing something. I was just about to do it, but then this person called, or then this happened. So a moment can change something so powerfully. Right. So if it's put into you to call somebody or to do something, do it.
Do it. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's actually in our culture. In my culture.
Yes, absolutely.
If you think, oh, I got to call them.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
That is so very true, because we all, I'm terrible with the phone, but if somebody's like really pressing on me, I'm like, you know what, I gotta reach out. Gotta reach out, because you don't know. You don't know what that may mean right at that moment, what that opportunity is, or whatever it is, you don't know. I think too. Oh, I just lost it.
I was just thinking too how we are connected on so many other levels, right? So that vibration, that kinetic energy, that energy, like you know something is not hitting right.
Yeah.
When we ignore it, I think that's when we run into the issues. Because Miss America, I think she just did the interview with Barack Obama. I think it was him.
It was some interview. I remember.
Yeah. It was a big interview.
Yeah, and they were saying how, how a lot,
great job, great energy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think
you wonder, and honestly, friends, I can say that in some ways you could fake that.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
In a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways. Well, yeah, in a lot of ways you could fake that. When the camera's on, when the lights are on, a lot of times, when I remember this one incident we had, we had a Christmas party for the office, and we were in one of the facilities. I can't remember the name of it. And I remember being there, and I remember I just kept walking away because I felt down. I felt alone. Room full of people.
Right.
And it was like, what in the world is going on with me right now? But if you talk to me, I'm like, oh yeah, Happy New Year, Happy Christmas, whatever. Exactly. And so, and I guess that's why sometimes I wonder who would be able to recognize that she, had these thoughts.
You said something too.
Or if she even had the thought, or how long the thought was, or was she one of them people, you know what, let's just get it done.
I think you said something.
What is that process? How do we know what that process is?
I think you said something that's important to share, is that you recognized it. I think sometimes we all go through those periods of, absolutely, I'm not having the greatest day, but you recognize it and you don't stay in it.
Correct.
Right? So you get out of it. I again, another message I tell my students, it's okay to be wrong. It's not okay to stay wrong.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
We're going to make some mistakes. We're going to do some things that are off what we need to do, off of our schedule or whatever. But when you fix it, when you recognize it and say, you know what, I had to shake it off and then move on to the next. I think we have a generation that doesn't know how to shake it off.
Yes. Oh, that was a good one that
I saw that. Yeah.
That people become dull to the signs, and they just think, that is true. They expect you to just, you don't pick yourself up.
True. That is.
Oh my goodness, that is good, Marvin. Thank you.
That's a good one.
Oh, and that probably would be something that somebody would think about me. Like even living with, growing up and living with my sister, she would say, nothing bothers you. And I would say, well, yeah, things do bother me. I say, but I go in my room, I work it out, and then I come back out.
Yeah.
So if I'm telling her that, then she knows that that's my process. But what happens when it might go a little bit further and you think, oh, well, that's just a process, and then they don't come back from it?
Right.
That's very true.
Yes,
Like,
there
how do you
is.
know something is different?
There are questions that you can ask. So instead of us just asking the generic, how are you doing? Are you okay? There are certain questions that you can ask to go further, to kind of just as not as a clinician, but just as a layperson, that you can ask your loved ones these questions to kind of assess, okay, do we have something severe here? Do we have something that I need to kind of monitor? And I think it's called the Columbia Protocol, that they actually walk the person, the family member, through those questions. So it may be good to kind of take a look at that.
Oh, wow.
And yes, and you literally, because the example that you use is quite common. In fact, I always talk about my two people, which is the one person who feels like, everything's perfect. I never have any problems. Everything is great. I'm fine. Versus the next person who say, life is tough, but I'm getting through it. And this is what I'm doing to work through them. And I have these challenges, but I would worry more about the first person
that says I'm fine.
Yes. That's the one that I would be, checking in with regularly, making sure they're good, that type of thing.
What about the person that just complain all the time? That's another thing I don't want to do. Like,
there's always a problem.
My phone is literally blowing up. Like, Lisa, I'm checking on you. This is a big
Wonderful, wonderful. Lisa, first of all, I want you to take this in from me. Anytime you have a feeling, it is valuable. So it's never a burden. So you should, whatever you're feeling that's authentic to you to say or feel and express to someone else, do it. It's not considered a burden to anyone that loves you.
I'm learning that. I'm actually learning that in these last, since my mother passed. I'm learning that.
Yes.
I think I'm the I'm there, but I'm usually the person people come to.
And me too, friends. Yeah.
I've been in that role too.
And say, hey, I need help too. Today's not a good day. And what I had to learn is who to go to. Right.
Yes.
And I think, that was kind of the turning point for me. Okay, you can't solve everybody's problems. Do what you can. And you know what? There's time when your well is low.
Yes.
And you need to figure out, and I had to figure out, okay, what are the things that I can do for myself to add value, to add that water back into me? Because I'm always pouring out. One of my good friends said, man, everything you do is of service. So you're always giving, but you need to find ways to pour back into you, because you can't give if you don't have.
Or allow people to pour into you, friends, who hates gifts, who hates acts of service.
Listen, I had to learn that. Like, thank you for the gift.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing something that I know I needed help with. But I was just too stubborn to say, okay, go ahead.
People that are of service have the toughest time being served. If you are a giver, it's hard to accept someone doing it for you.
Yes.
So, Dr. Henderson, before I let you go.
Oh, it's 10 o'clock already. I just looked at that.
It is. I know, right?
Oh my God.
I would like to ask you, who is your shero?
My mom.
Everybody been saying mom.
My mom, my sister. Yeah. Those are my sheroes.
I love it. I think that was the consensus from last week too.
Yeah, that definitely was.
Moms, aunts, grandmothers.
Listen, they're the first clinicians.
I know.
Right?
You better say it, Francis.
To give you that support, to pull you out of that space, man. That's why I give them all the praise. You got the mothers and the mother figures.
Well said.
Absolutely. So, oh my goodness. So, we want to give you the suicide hotline number, 800 800-273-8255. 800-273-8255. In this golden age of technology, you can also just Google and find some help, which we found out tonight that there are apps, there are all of these resources that are available. Again, like Dr. Henderson said, we are so pleased that mental health is being discussed. So don't be afraid to reach out. It is somebody that cares about what you are going through and is willing to help you. They may not even know you at this point, but there are people who are very passionate about mental health that will help you sight unseen. Thank you, Veronique.
Yes, yes. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, I really
one that
enjoyed
needs
it.
to continue. We need to continue to have it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We well, you know, we love a good topic on Kitchen Talk.
Oh, yes, we
Yes, conversations that cook.
Yes, they do. Yes, yes, yes. So definitely, Dr. Henderson, you will be back with us.
Love it.
Really enjoyed you. I think again that it is something that we just need to, like, almost like voting. We just need to keep talking about it. There are so many things that we just need to keep talking about, and so the conversations get started. I am so loving how my phone has just been buzzing like almost the whole. Especially once friends said, I just went on and did a check-in with my people.
Check in, people.
It's like my phone is like, hey girl, how you doing?
And that's what it's supposed to be, right?
Yes.
Right.
I'm loving this.
And they'll reach out to their family like, what is going on? It's like, oh, I watch Kitchen Talk and then we need to check in, you know, whatever. So I think it's great. It is wonderful. We will be right back here next week. We're actually doing a check-in with hopefully with Miss Black and with Miss Tatum, so we can find out what's going on. You know, Miss Black is our woman in the know, and then Miss Tatum is our COVID expert. At least that's what we call her.
She is.
So we're gonna check in with those two ladies next week. We are still celebrating Women's History Month. Power to the people, and yes to the women that do it, that keep doing it, that been doing it, whether you call their name or not. Thank you so much, Dr. Henderson, for joining us tonight. So appreciated it.
Yes, so fitting too, right? Women's History Month.
Yeah.
I mean, women's not just history, but Women's Celebration Month. To have you come on is just, this is, man.
Yeah,
Lisa, you on point. You on point. Lisa.
You know, I do what I can, friends. I do what I can. I do what I can. So thank you guys for watching us. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. If you're watching us on Facebook, hit the like button so you will never miss another show. We will be right back here next week, next Thursday at 9:00 for another Kitchen Talk CTC.
Conversations that cook.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Thank you all and good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.